Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Council Podcast's spoiler discussion for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And I want to be extra clear, to really talk about this movie, we're really going to have to talk about a lot of Marvel stuff, so spoiler warning for all things MCU. So if you haven't been watching Disney Plus, if you haven't watched the first 27 movies, not that you need to know about all of them for this discussion, but who knows what we're going to reference in our thoughts on this movie. So just want to put a blanket statement out there just to cover our bases. So spoilers
Even
ahead
beyond
for
the
a lot of
MCU,
things.
you are expected to have watched every single film in the history of cinema before joining this conversation. You have been warned.
And
Yeah.
don't worry, Antony will mention every single MCU movie ever and the ones that are to come.
I don't know, Natalia. I think this is going to be a very hard conversation to loop back to the MCU. We'll see. At least the MCU that I've held close for so long.
Extra clarity never hurts because, you know, some things were lacking in clarity, like this movie. I have a lot of thoughts. For once, I might drone on.
Constance.
So, but if there's a chance that one of the other three co-hosts here might have slightly shorter thoughts, maybe I should not go first because then they'll be like, I'll never get to talk. So does anyone have really strong things they want to get out there right out of the gate? Yes,
I do. It's the thing that I've already set out to you guys. My two biggest things with the movie were one that I felt that Sochi was miscast. I didn't find her to be super compelling as America Chavez. I feel like America Chavez has always been a character that has always had like a whole lot of like drive and power and everything. And I get that felt more appropriate near the end, but like she felt a little bit passive in the movie. And it was like, it's because I can't control my power. It's like, yeah, of course, totally. You're a child. But like, I don't know. I wanted a little bit more out of her in terms of her drive and her purpose as character. And what was the other point? I have already seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a superior multiverse film. And because I have seen that, I feel like it's a lot harder for me to watch this movie, for me to have already seen Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's so difficult to compare, but like, it's just, one is just slightly better than the other.
Slightly better?
You know, I'm trying to be nice to the Marvel people down below. Everything Everywhere All at Once kills it and is also more emotionally driven. But that's a topic for another day. Those are my 2 cents. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Oh, TED Talk. You haven't seen a TED Talk.
Mm-mm.
So, Hale,
Yeah.
what are your overall thoughts?
I got a lot to talk about, but I think Wanda carried this film. I think everyone can agree that she was the main highlight. And I wanted a Doctor Strange sequel ever since the first time I saw it. You know, I may be in that minority who thought this film was great. You know, people thought it was too confusing, and I can understand that. But I really wanted a sequel to cement Doctor Strange's position in the MCU, and we saw that we saw a lot of fans getting behind him after Infinity War. So I think that propelled this movie to come out a little bit, you know. But I was fine with him being at the back end, you know, like not at the forefront as Wanda is in my view, because it is Multiverse of Madness, and in my view, she is the madness that we see in and throughout the film. I would say, like, you know, I don't know if you want me to go through all the list I have here, but I think we can talk about that afterward. But that'll be up to you, Constance.
Well, if we all have a lot to say, maybe we can just do a quick, this is generally where we stand, and then maybe we can break it down by different categories of things that we all want to discuss. So
perfect. And I can close with this. Overall, I give it 8 out of 10. I wouldn't give it, you know, I thought, and I give movies quite a high rating for a lot of things, so maybe I'm not the best to be reliable in that given moment. But I think one thing that I see the MCU and other Disney properties fall back short of is the action sequences. I think they should have been longer, and I think a minute more here and there would have been sufficient for a better reaction.
Okay, interesting. So if you're not following Antony's solo channel, shame on you. I just watched it a couple hours ago because I finally had a time to sit down on YouTube and just be like, what are people saying now that we've had a couple days? So I know where Antony stands, but feel free to give us a slightly different synopsis from that channel, but definitely go check it out if you want to hear more from him. So
thank you, Constance. Okay, full disclosure. I really gave this movie a chance. I've seen the film 3 times. Yeah, I really did not enjoy this film. I thought that the script was severely lacking in sophistication and depth. I think that it was a film that sought to shock its audience over giving them something that had any complexity. There was a sense that the filmmakers were more focused on shocking you rather than making you feel something. And the things that I did feel were uncomfort. There were many times where I was watching this film and the choices that were being made, particularly with the female characters, and we'll get into that, and not just the one that everybody's talking about, the one over my shoulder, but all of them. I just felt that was very dated to me, and it literally, there were moments where I literally felt a little sick to my stomach watching certain scenes play out, because if it's not clear by now, I love these movies and they're very impersonal to me, and so having to watch certain characters go about this movie, it just felt wrong to me. And I very rarely do I feel art is wrong, but I feel like this was a case where personally it affected me in a way that I don't want to revisit it. I don't want to be hyperbolic, and I don't say this to be hyperbolic, but to me, it is my least favorite MCU movie. As somebody who loves The Last Jedi, I now know what it was like for people who didn't like that movie to sit through that movie, because this is what that is for me. So those are my overall thoughts on the film. I'm sure we'll get into it, but yeah, this was, mark your calendars. This is the only time that you're going to see me talk about Marvel in this way. I'm not a blind fan. This is your proof, because this movie really didn't work for me. Despite, and I'll just finish this, there's a great tweet I retweeted where they were like, the score, the visuals, the direction, everything, the performances, there were so many things working together that could have made this be the best Marvel movie, but it's just there were some fundamental flaws that took the entire movie down for me, and that's why it's so disappointing.
I agree with
Well
Antony.
Well said. I'm not going to give my whole. I'm not going to blow my load right now. I will say a condensed version. I am very disappointed. You know, when you're a kid and we always say the only thing worse than our parents yelling at us is when they do that whole, I'm just so disappointed. Like that cut.
Like that sigh. Yeah.
You know, I am that person right now where it's like, oh, I'm so disappointed. And it hurts so much more than if it had just been awful. But this is not the complete, train wreck. I do have a list of good things. It's the short list. So how about I just name that? Because the bad list is everything that's not this list.
Nice.
I did like some of the visuals, like Wanda going through the mirror and how Doctor Strange's scarf, he would do a little flip and then and he's in his Doctor Strange costume. Those little things. Yeah.
That was the best.
I love the one part. Oh, that was so hot. Oh.
Yeah. Not all the visuals are good, but I think some of those smaller things, those attention to detail, very nice. The acting is good. Everything I have bad to say is not on the acting or the actors. I feel like, oh, no, we can't keep the buck with them. Not in this case. I applaud Marvel for going to a horror place, because in 2019, when they came out and said, this will be our first horror film, in the same vein that Winter Soldier is supposed to be a political thriller, I thought, ooh. And I do think they delivered. If you went and going, I want to see, prove it, as Doctor Strange would say, prove it. They did. If you wanted horror, they gave it to you. And I do think they delivered on that front. Well, I'm like, well, that's what they said they were going to give us. And they did. But there was other things that were said that they did not follow up on. So to me, that's the good. What's good? You know, if
That
you
is a short list.
Well, I wanted to condense it to my category. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I can go on and on about Elizabeth Olsen. I'm like, right. The short way of saying it is acting good. We don't have to.
The acting takes one-dimensional characters on the page and making them two-dimensional characters, not three-dimensional, just two.
Right.
I love this.
It's like this. It's fitting that this is our season finale because it's like we've been building up to this moment for 2 years.
And then all of a sudden, you'll never hear from us again.
Yeah.
I get the consensus as I've been reading reviews that the number one thing that people have umbrage with is the writing and/or structure, unless those are not the same thing. So maybe we should just talk about that first.
Yeah.
So
Okay, this is the number one question, and I would probably say this is Kevin Feige's biggest mistake. As somebody who I am inspired by the man, I think his passion and his verve has changed this industry, and I respect it. By far and away, his biggest mistake was not involving Jack Schaefer in the writing of this movie. If you don't know who she was, she head wrote and created WandaVision. And for me, it's very telling that there was not a woman involved in the creative process of this film. Because what I was saying about how I felt all the female characters were dated, every dimension that these female characters have, and there's not much to them.
Freaking Christine.
All of them, their only characterization is whether they're a wife, a mother, or a daughter. That's it. Xochitl Gomez is America Chavez. Her only characterization is that she had two moms and she was their daughter, and now they're gone. Christine Palmer is only relevant as to whether she's in a romantic situation with Dr. Stephen Strange. And then Wanda, the whole reason why, and we'll get into this, of course, in more depth, but like her whole thing is, I'm a mother. And that justifies it. It's like, no, it felt like men thinking that this is the only thing that women actually care about and the only thing that gives them purpose. And I'm wondering if the women on this panel agree with that. That's the way it hit me.
I would just like to mention that we are filming this on Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to Constance. Happy Mother's Day to everyone's favorite mom, Wanda. Yeah, no, the thing that I left this movie thinking on positives had absolutely no women involved, which is absolutely hilarious because you know how much I love ladies. I don't know. It was just so gross for me to watch it because like whenever we would go back to someone else, every single time America would mention Christine, it was almost always like, so what's your connection to Christine? Did you fall in love with her in this one? And every single time Dr. Strange would talk about Christine, it was always in reference to them as a couple. Like, that's a human being. Yeah.
Also, should we just get into it? Should we just talk about Scarlet Witch?
Yeah, there's a part of it where it was like, if you don't take so much of that into account, you're just like, oh my God, she's a grieving mother, very sad. I agree completely. Yes. However, that's all that we ever see of her. That's her like main purpose is I am mom, bestie. There's so much more to you. Like, yeah. Come on.
And also, I don't know how many mass shootings happen in this country over grieving mothers. Like, I'm pretty sure grieving mothers, the direct beeline is not massacre women and children. And like,
not according to men.
Well, again, when you only see women as being mothers and that's the only thing they have. So this is my question, because I saw a thread was forwarded to me where somebody said, but Wanda is a monster and that this is completely in line with her character. Personally, for me, the way I read the ending of WandaVision is a character is finally coming to terms with themselves. I don't think the show has closure. I think it has a conclusion, but I don't think Wanda has finished her arc. And I think she is remorseful. And I think what people are forgetting is that she herself didn't know that she was enslaving all these people. Like, it took Agatha taking her on the previously on episode to show her that you did this involuntarily, maybe. But that's why, like, I never looked at her as a monster within the context of the show, because she wasn't doing it out of malicious intent. She was just so swept up in all of her grief and trauma that she wasn't even aware of the choices she was making, which I found to be very respectful. I think the problem is that so many people are used to her in the comics, and also they're used to blockbusters not having that sort of nuance and actual like contemplation, that when we get to this movie, some people are like fine with the choice because they see the comics character represented, and they're not used to superhero movies having this amount of like contemplation to them. But so that's, I think, also the issue is I think there might be a little bit of a difference in how people interpret that text of WandaVision. But to me, it just seemed very clearly that from there, she's either going to work harder to restore her mental stability or she's going to relapse. But the problem is that that whole journey happens before the movie starts. And she's already taken with the Darkhold. The Darkhold is a deus ex machina that will just, whatever Wanda needs to be to get her to be the horror movie villain that this movie wants, the Darkhold is your answer, and it has nothing to do with what you're being shown. I mean, show don't tell is like the screenwriting golden rule, and we don't see any of Wanda's transformation. And I disagree vehemently that that is a natural progression from the end of WandaVision. So,
Well, there is a caveat there because we were forgetting the post-credit scene of WandaVision of how she was reading the Darkhold. We don't know how long that was, and I agree with you. Show don't tell, but you know it has been a year since WandaVision, and we know that she's been reading the Darkhold, so we know that she'd be corrupt in some level.
my response to that is that, and this was a point that Dan Murrell brought up in his review, is that in that in that post-credit scene, she hears her children calling out for help. So if Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness picked up with her using the Darkhold to try and save her kids, then we would be having a completely different conversation. But what she's doing here is she's being completely coerced by the powers of the Darkhold, just because she wants something. It's like, it's not like she's succumbing to the darkness because she's trying to do something worthy that connects with the character that came before her. And again, this is another place where I feel you can tell a woman didn't write this, because look at how the Darkhold possesses Agatha and look how it possesses Wanda in this movie. It's completely different. She's a lot more villainized in this film. She looks uglier. And so I think it's clear that there's not a lot of nuance to her, and that I think Raimi and Waldron just wanted her to be a plot device. They wanted her to be an external villain, and they were just they didn't want to address the conversation, so they just ignored it and put it before the movie started, so they didn't have to actually converse with that conversation. So I don't think the post-credit scene necessarily links us to this moment, or we would have all been we would have had these conversations when WandaVision ended. We would have said, oh no, what are they doing? We didn't think that because we didn't think that they would jump this much in between projects.
Constance,
Then who would
resident mom here.
Hang on, I want Sohail to finish.
Oh no, I was just wanted to just quickly say, like, or ask rather, if we knew that Wanda was going to be the villain. I don't. My screen is frozen, but if you can see my air quotes there. What else would the storyline involve with her?
I mean, I think what they should have done is that we had a variant Wanda come in as the horror movie villain this movie wanted her to be. She's saying, I want whatever. I want my kids. I want my life. It was taken from me. Strange, because he is the protagonist of the story, lest we forget, even though he's like a tertiary character in his own movie. He says, well, your sacrifice in the grand calculus of the multiverse is the price that needs to pay. And then our Wanda is trapped in between helping her horror movie self, but a self that she sees maybe underneath the pain that she experienced in WandaVision, or helping Strange. And then that's where you can have your conflict. I think that what happened is it almost felt like Michael Waldron wrote this script after Endgame, because I feel like if WandaVision didn't happen, you could maybe just say she got the Darkhold, it happened off screen. It would have been a little thin, but it would have made more sense. After WandaVision, I don't think you can make the case that this is the same character, and them ignoring it isn't the solve. So I would have done that, basically. If you still wanted to be the villain, I would have brought in a variant Wanda that then would have conflicted our 616 Wanda.
It also would have been easier for us to have more multiverse-ness.
Yeah.
Because whenever we would always see a version of Wanda, it was always a happier Wanda with the boys.
Mhm.
That poor
This
family.
Wanda with a family. This Wanda, our 616 Wanda, was just the sad grieving mother. And I was like, come on, there's no math, not a single math.
Mhm.
Hey, Constance.
All right, strap in.
Mom.
Because
Buckle up.
I have things that connect to everything you guys have just talked about since the last time I talked. Okay, so here's the thing. I love Evil Wanda. I think that's a great idea, and I do like Antony's pitch. It's not the only pitch, but that's a very good pitch. So if you don't go with that, Marvel, there's a couple other avenues you could have gone. So first of all, we've been waiting for a Doctor Strange sequel for quite some time, and that movie ended in such a way where you thought, oh, Mordo has this threat of like the bill always comes due. And you think to yourself after giving Thanos the time stone, it's like, this is the perfect inciting incident. He will show up going, look what you did. Yes, you saved us, but it's coming with a price. I thought Mordo was going to be, this is what I thought was going to happen. Not that it had to do this exactly, but something just to have a through line. Because if it's all about the connection, we'll show the connection. I thought he was going to show up and be like, here's your comeuppance. Here's the price you had to pay. And what I thought was going to happen was, because he appears in No Way Home and he cracks open the multiverse, I was like, well, there you go. It's cracked open. They think they sealed it, but maybe Evil Wanda came in. Or what if Evil Strange walked in? Yes, him. What if I thought we were going to have a couple of Doctor Stranges and they were all going to, kind of like Spider-Man, the whole, like, you're here and you're here. Yeah. I thought that was going to happen. And they either would have to inadvertently create Evil Wanda, or they would have to fight Wanda, something. I thought it was going to be much more like that.
It seemed as if the Wanda was going to do what she did in response to what Strange would do. Like, it would be a response, but instead Strange is responding to Wanda.
Yeah.
Like, Strange is very impassive in this film, to me at least.
Yeah. So to go back to 2019's Comic-Con, where Kevin Feige, they did the whole, you're getting your first Marvel horror movie. They also said the events of WandaVision are going to lead directly into Doctor Strange 2. Quote, Kevin Feige, go watch the tape. Kevin Feige says this, okay?
Multiple times.
I get Disney Plus for the sole reason because Kevin Feige, who I trust until recent years, I'm like, this is important. And they didn't say Winter and Falcon and Winter Soldier is important, or Loki. I'm like, but you got to watch everything, because what if they go, ooh, you didn't know this was going to be important, but we surprised you. That way, those of you who are loyal and watch everything, you get a little treat. Because that's what everything is. Everything's supposed to be a little treat, all nicely wrapped up. So to me, this movie does not have an act one. We just jump into it, and Wanda is suddenly evil. And I was like,
yeah.
Did they chop the first third? It was so weird not to have an act one. I know people don't like exposition, but I was like, how did we get here? I'm like, I feel lied to. I feel like I was conned into getting Disney Plus to watch a show that was mostly good. It had a few things. And now I'm like, what was the point of that? What was the point of Doctor Strange being in No Way Home other than to crack open the verse? Because even though Spider-Man's all powerful and he can defeat him in the mirror dimension, but he can't open the multiverse by himself. So Spider-Man needs some help. So Doctor Strange is there to look like a fool. And then we get to this movie, and Mordo doesn't matter. We're trying to reconnect threads with Christine, but it's kind of like, so what? I mean, as a Doctor Strange fan, and I know Doctor Strange fans are not as prominent as other characters. Like whenever I look at people's rankings of characters, Doctor Strange is always in the middle. He's not the bottom, but he's not the top. He's very much a middle character for the mass of MCU fans that I interact with. He's in the middle for people. I get that. So maybe he's not popular enough for people to really take care of him, but it can be done. The Russos have done it. Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame juggled a lot of characters, and everyone felt like they had their moment and that they were important. Here we have a movie that has a lot less characters, and they don't feel important. American Chavez, I'm not against having this character introduced, but why are we taking even more time from Doctor Strange to give her, a reason to be here? And why is she here? Her reason
for Young Avengers. For Young Avengers.
Right. And there's another criticism. I've seen a lot of chatter about this coined phrase called the MCU, where we're trying to femalize the... And the whole time I'm watching the movie, maybe I've watched too much of that stuff, but I'm like, oh my God, this is why she's here. We don't want a Doctor Strange. We want female Doctor Strange, and Wanda is so important, and Christine's so important, and we have to have Agent Carter. She's so important. I'm sorry. When Wanda says to her, Haven't you had enough? I was like, don't do it. Don't you fucking do it. And she did the whole, I could do this all day. I'm like, fuck you, movie. I am so pissed about that. As a woman, Antony, to get to your question of, ladies, how do you feel? Do not take your male characters, what they're established. That is a Steve Rogers line. That is not a Captain America line. That is Steve. He said that before he was Captain America. Remember? Okay. Do not take your male characters and make female versions. So be like, look, girls can be Captain America too.
It's
for 10 seconds.
I mean, it's either they do that or they make imperialism woman, and that's essentially what Agent Carter is.
But this is the problem with all this, is that we're saying like all these female, like listen, it's not lost on me that our original 6 Avengers team, all of their kind of passing the batons, we've swapped the genders. We used to have 1 woman and 5 men, and now we have 5 women and 1 man, because we have Iron Man to Ironheart, Clint to Kate, Yelena's still Black Widow, She-Hulk, Hulk, Lady Thor. So we get all these now female versions of the originals, which I don't think is terrible, but I agree. Let's create some new characters. We had an original female character who was not associated with a male identity, and yet we only stripped away everything that made that character what they were. And that's where it's like, to the people who are saying, we'll stop judging it in response to WandaVision, that's the whole point. This is one long experiment. You can't take away. So when you have a character that represents mental health, and then in this movie you're basically showing her to be a horrific depiction, I can't disassociate the fact that I'm now watching a character that represents mental health being vilified. And then the other thing too is that if the whole movie is Wanda learning to move on and process and not stay in the past, I think it is an incredibly lazy choice to kill her in this movie. Whether she comes back in the future or not, this story ends with the death of Wanda. And I would almost go as far to say the movie promotes suicide, because it says if you can't get what you want, then kill yourself. Because that's the only moral correct thing to do. Because I think the movie's saying the only moral good thing that Wanda does in the movie is killing herself at the end.
Yeah. I don't know about the last thing that you said, but I think there are some moments there. I think when Wanda did kill herself at the end, I think that was misplaced. I didn't think that was appropriate at that time. But then how can you redeem such a character after going after that rampage?
We did it with Loki.
Yeah.
Loki
now
killed
we
him.
have a female Loki.
I didn't like that show, so there's that. I think, Constance, you're right when you said that when you criticised at the start about how Kevin Feige said WandaVision, Doctor Strange 2 would lead from WandaVision. But I think what I took away from what he said at that moment was the fundamental stuff, as in she created her children. Vision, although he was very, he was missing in this film, right? I think we can all agree that he should have been there at least at the end. But I think Vision's gone. She needs her children. She now has the Darkhold. I thought those were the 3 themes that I saw them take into this new film. Whether it was satisfactory or not, I thought that was all right for me. Now for Peggy, I thought she looked beautiful in this film, right? So I was like, wow.
That's not hard for Haley Atwell to do.
No, it's not, no. But I didn't watch Agent Carter, but I did admire her in this film. The only thing I thought I liked, maybe it's because I'm a guy, but I actually liked her referencing Steve. I thought like, oh look, it's a wee tie-in, but obviously they're different characters. She's not the female Captain America, she's Captain Imperialism.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can understand that. But to me, obviously, when I was watching it, I didn't think anything else of it, other than, although not the MCU thing, but I did read a comment another day, is that they killed off Reed and Black Bolt straight away, but then had the women fight each other.
Mhm.
Yes.
Which that doesn't
I'd-
solve the issues with like physical exertion on the behalf of women does not
Yeah.
then solve all the issues thematically with how you're representing the women.
I
It's like
think-
they thought that would fix it.
Yeah, I thought Black Bolt's death was. I'm gonna be all over the place, but with
The
the
movie is
but
too, so don't worry. You're fine.
yeah,
Right on
Black
theme.
Bolt's
Yeah.
Black Bolt's death was appropriate. I think that was needed to shock everyone that she is wanting to
Serious.
kill everyone who's in her way. But
It was
Reed,
gross and it was cool.
yes, and surprised that they did that, but I was all for it. But Reed Richard dying like a stringy cheese, I was just like, wait, that's it. So, although when he was, shown on screen, I was just reliving the days of watching Fantastic Four. So happy about that. But the honeymoon period was over at the time of him passing away, or rather being killed. String cheese that I bought some after the movie just to commemorate him. Yeah, so I can understand Peggy. Captain Marvel, I don't think anyone was excited about her in this film. I thought she was quite bland. If we're going to talk about performances, I don't think she was a standout per se.
I feel like out of all of the cameos of the Illuminati that were there,
Yeah.
I think John Krasinski was the one who phoned it in the most. He was just here for like, I'm here for the snacks and that's it.
Well,
Yeah.
think
Everyone
about it.
else.
Everybody else has played these characters,
Yeah,
so they're more comfortable.
totally.
We can maybe get into this now. Sam Raimi's direction. I don't think he was given any direction, so he was just like left to. It felt very like Star Wars prequel acting. It just like left to their own devices, and I think that's why it doesn't work. It also he doesn't have a character. He says like 3 lines. One of them is incredibly stupid because he tells Wanda how to defeat the villain, to defeat Black Bolt, and then he's gone. So
After being
I don't-
introduced as being the smartest man, I'm like, not very smart there.
Who are
If he's
you?
really so smart, he
I
should have
don't-
outsmarted her instead of
Are you-
outgunned her.
yeah,
I don't think that's a good criticism because their Wanda is not the Scarlet Witch, but Scarlet Witch would know who Black Bolt is. Even if they didn't, I think they severely underestimated Wanda, and that was a plot point, right? From Captain Marvel saying we can handle your witch. I think
but they
that made
see
sense that they
her-
would say that.
But they
to
see
only,
her
like,
on
scare her.
the security cameras destroying everything. So at that point, like I don't think it just I agree that when I was watching the thing, it's like, well, of course then you're all gonna die. Because at that point, like you've already seen how angry she is. Don't take it's like you're going onto it's a Hamilton thing. It's like you're on the dueling ground. Take this seriously because you just saw this person kill people. Like, come on, Reed. Like, just isolate her instead of like talking. I don't know. It struck me as a little bit. Well, we can get into it. It felt like they just introduced all those people to die. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think
So-
both of you have excellent points. It's not that I don't see what Sohail is saying, and I couldn't get on board with that. Because in the moment, I loved the kills. I was like, yes, because I'm tired of people going, ooh, Marvel's afraid to go there. And it's like, shut up. Winter Soldier and Thor Ragnarok are not cookie cutter movies. They do not resemble each other. So all these people that say they're all samey-wamey, shut up. They are not,
Yeah, also, this idea that, like, oh, this is a special Marvel movie because it shows a real director. Like, Ryan Coogler, Taika Waititi,
Taika,
the Russos,
right.
like, all of these movies, for the most part, I would say more of them than not, do represent the director's personality and perspective artistically. So this idea that this movie should get a pass because Raimi's allowed
This
to
is
go
Raimi.
unhinged. Like, Spider-Man 2 is my favorite comic book movie of all time, so I love Raimi Marvel. It just didn't fit here. And that was my thing. It's like the visuals were so random. There was a randomness to the whole thing. And then his horror movie elements, I think, weren't appropriate for this story. So sure, they were cool, but they left me hollow afterwards because all the Illuminati deaths, it's like, well, you just introduced them to kill them. And you're making the person who's killing them, I feel shouldn't be killing them. So it just, when I reflect on that scene is like the whole movie. It's the epitome of the entire thing. It's a bunch of shock value, wasting character development. It takes the question of what if and turns it into so what.
Mm-hmm. And it's a real shame because what's useful about her, they can have their cake and eat it too. It's okay that she killed all them because they're not the 616 versions of those characters. So in a way, it's like, see, we kill people, but if we want to continue with, Fantastic Four and have him in the role, we can. So in a way, they can kind of have it, but that way they get to show it because they could be like, see, we're not afraid to go there. So I don't think it's completely hollow, but it's going to make repeat watching very hard. Like, that was fun. I've only seen it once, and I went to the Thursday night showing in like the premium theater. It was only half full, so I was nervous, but everyone in there, I mean, they laughed at every joke, even the jokes that don't land. They clapped after when who says it? The one that goes, "Oh, we've labeled you as 616." That got a huge round of applause. I mean, they clapped at everything. They were just like, "Give it to me," and they loved it. So it made me have fun, but I know when I watch this in the privacy of my home, it's just gonna be like crickets. So it's not gonna be fun to do it again. You know what I mean?
I can guarantee you, it is not. Mm-hmm. It felt at certain points of this movie, it was like I was watching my family members tied up. That was the experience. It was like.
Right. Hannah and I went to go see it yesterday morning, at like 11:15 because we like them cheap seats, and there wasn't really a whole lot of people there. There was like a couple behind us that were like talking the whole time. And it was like annoying to have them in my ear and then something in front of me that I was kind of just like, okay, that's it was just, Also, I haven't seen What If, and you don't have to.
You don't have to see anything.
You don't have to, yeah. Honestly, if you see those boys, if you see Billy and Tommy?
Tommy.
Yeah. Billy and Tommy, if you see them on screen, you're instantly going to be like, oh, they keep calling Wanda mom. Like, yeah, things are going to connect. You don't really have to.
Which I will say, because I was watching reviews for the movie before I saw it, and everybody was saying, oh, the amount of homework this movie requires is too much. Or like, it just, and I was like, we've been here before. Why are we still requesting people watch other things? That shouldn't be a major complaint. But I think the reason why it's more pronounced here is because there really isn't a story to this movie. And so you just feel all of these elements that are more pronounced because the only enjoyment I feel you're going to get out of this story is the recognition of these characters from other mediums, even though they're not the same characters. Like the Captain Carter introduced in What If is like, they're not the same. They just share the same face. That's it.
I mean, I would agree with you saying that Doctor Strange 2 would be like a WandaVision season 2 in a way that only connects somewhat, but it's not enough to warrant. I mean, I'm sad to say it, warrant a whole movie based on this type of story, because I thought after Spider-Man, and I'm sorry if Constance, you already said this, it should have been him opening up a whole bunch of problems there and have his recompense in this movie instead of it all being about Wanda. I mean, it could have been tied in more, but I don't know if that was a COVID issue or just lazy writing on that part.
I mean, I feel Constance brought this up a little earlier. I feel like what they should have done is Doctor Strange 2 being Mordo as the villain.
I missed him so much, and I was so excited to see Tutu Ejiofor.
I mean, Tutu Ejiofor, like a class act. He just is such a great actor, and he was just wasted here. Still in a hole. I can't believe you're in a hole in the Illuminati room. Bye-byes, and we never see him again.
I guess that bill we're still waiting on that bill.
We're gonna find him in the hole in Doctor Strange 3. But I feel that the sequel should have been, okay, do the multiverse, have Mordo be the villain, and Wanda recruited to help out. And as the movie goes on, the ending of Doctor Strange 2 is Wanda fully becomes the villain. And then Doctor Strange 3 is a Civil War level movie where you actually can maybe do the mutants, you can bring them in, and Wanda is now the villain. I think you needed one other movie to get us from Wanda. If WandaVision was a trilogy, you had WandaVision, Doctor Strange 2, Doctor Strange 3. I think that's what you needed. I think they skipped, as we all said, the Kamar-Taj fight feels like the third act of the movie that we didn't see. So even though I like this movie, similar to Rise of Skywalker, where it feels like Abrams made his episode 8 in the first 20 minutes and then did episode 9. That's what the first 20 minutes of Doctor Strange 2 feels. It feels like their Doctor Strange sequel at the beginning, and then they can keep going.
The run part in Kamar-Taj was the sexiest thing in that entire movie.
Yeah.
Very hot. I liked, one of the things that I did like about the movie was a lot of like the fades and everything, all jumping in onto each other, especially near the, that, like the, but also,
and she's like going around.
Yep. But yeah, that, and it's like when Wanda is setting up her little, I don't know, little meditation section, that was really cute. My favorite part of this entire movie was most definitely Benedict's wig. Both of the Benedict's wigs.
What about his eye?
His eye, I guess.
No explanation.
No,
the other problem with the writing is, what are the rules? You have this all-powerful evil book, you have this all-powerful good book, and he has an eye. Is that bad? Okay, it takes Wanda a very long time to be corrupt, but Strange uses it once, for mere minute. There's no explanation of the rules.
There's no internal logic to the movie. It's just there's a randomness. It's whatever they think of in the moment. It's like they improv the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason why he got punished so quickly was because he revived a dead person. I think that was the sin.
I think so.
Yeah.
When all the souls were like,
but can we?
Yeah, go.
Go ahead, Natalia.
No, all of the souls were giving very Scottish play witches vibes.
That's cool.
I'm not going to say the name of that play because the last time someone said the name of that play, someone got bitch slapped. So
that was cool how he turned into like a cape and he flew like.
Yeah, it's not like there wasn't anything good in this. I just have a lot of problem with the writing. Like Wanda's so overpowered, and yet she could have easily killed Christine. She could have easily killed, Yeah,
everyone.
Juan should be dead. I don't want him dead. Oh, sure. Gamora and Natasha are dead from falling off of a cliff, but Juan, you don't see him using his magic and a little protective bubble. No, he's just laying there. I'm like, oh, sure, he's alive.
Yeah.
I want Wong alive. I'm glad because my daughter loves him, and she was right next to me. So when he fell off that cliff, I was like, oh my God, not all these hormones. That's what's going to traumatize my kid. But then he was fine. I was like, oh my God. And Vision's presence is sorely missed. Now, I did not think Vision was going to be in the movie, but in that alternate universe, I thought, since we're spending so much time in their living room, I thought, there'll be a family picture. You'll see a picture of him. So he exists, but we're not worried about him right now because we don't have time.
Maybe he died.
Yeah.
In every single one, just like how in every single one we have happy family. Maximum.
But why do we have kids and no Vision? I just wish there was just something to allude why he's physically not there. Just
because
bring it up some more because he was so important to her.
I think Paul Bettany ran over Michael Waldron's childhood dog, and that's why he's not in this movie. Because it doesn't make sense. Well, you know why? It's because they reverse engineer the whole thing. They came up with the moment where the two Wandas touch face and like it's the only poignant moment I think in the whole freaking movie where she's like, know that they're loved, and they realize they can't have Vision there because if Vision's there, then that moment doesn't work because there can only be one parent for that scene to work, and I think that's why he's not in the movie.
Okay, but still, it'd be nice if they had something like in memorandum, like, he was here, but I'm going to carry on without him. Kind of just a little something, because my issue with WandaVision is if you're going to make it a half-hour show, why are you taking so much time with Hayward and the White Vision? Like, I don't know why all that's there.
Well, not to cul-de-sac completely, but I think what that is showing is the whole thing is about Vision discovering his identity and consciousness. And by the end of it, he's presented with everything he's looking for. He's looking at Vision. And it's this conversation about what makes you you. What is it? Your thoughts? Is it your body? So I think I think WandaVision's arc with him works because it's all about discovering yourself, and Vision it's just a representation of that for somebody who's not human. But at least with WandaVision, we could talk about certain things. I feel like with this movie, it's like they ignore. We're not talking about choices they made. We're talking about choices they didn't make, which I think is the problem.
There were very few choices made to begin with.
No. let's talk about this choice that they made about the score, because I have a lot to say about this. I did not like it. I hated it. I did not like the guitar with Wanda, them
Can't
explaining
remember
what
it.
walking thing is.
That one.
That was so 2000s. I wanted to kill whoever made that score. I did not like it. I I give it 8 out of 10, but I hated that score. I didn't like
Those are
the
the 2
music
points.
Those are the 2
fight.
points.
Yeah, I did not like. Speaking about music, I did not like that lyric fight with the two Doctor Strangers. I think if you liked it, good on you. But I, I think that was out of place. It was so weird. It didn't fit with. Oh, this is a different multiverse, so they'd be fighting with these instruments. I think that only happens like if you change it, it only happens when it's a different movie or you don't have the rights to it. I'm like, Marvel, you made the first
You
Doctor
have the
Strange.
rights.
Just give it
You
back.
own everything. That's the problem.
One thing I would say about the score that I wrote here, thank God, was the only thing I liked about it was the WandaVision jingle.
Yes.
Ugh,
That was it.
That's
That was
iconic.
nice. And the way how they transitioned her to being so happy, and we're like, oh, this must be
that was a good
a
shot.
different different universe. But then we see her wake up, and then everything starts to become grey. And I was like, that's a well done scene, and I'm glad they didn't spoil that because they spoiled a lot of things in the adverts, which I hated.
Everything was in the
Yeah.
trailer except Wanda dying. That was literally everything.
The
And
three
because
cameos that I was very excited about: Xavier, Peggy, and Reed Richards. Thank God they didn't ruin Reed Richards for me, but the other two, and I know Kevin Feige said we did too much, but you're the director of Marvel Company, and you didn't think to say to, I think it's Assad who runs Disney's advertising. You couldn't say to
yeah,
him, email him, say, don't put Xavier in the Super Bowl trailer. Do not put Peggy Carter in a week before the actual movie comes out. What are they going to do? If a movie came out next week, I'm sure they would have ruined Fantastic,
yeah.
Mr. Fantastic for
And
us.
this is after Endgame, which did such a great like the only shot I think that's beyond like is like the shot of like Tony Stark amidst the rubble, and that was in like the last trailer. It's like
Yeah.
yeah, it just seems it felt very odd. It felt very like Amazing Spider-Man 2 in terms of putting
But
stuff in the trailer. Or
and,
Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, where they put the ending in the trailer.
and this talks about cameos, and I understand, you know, I don't think cameos should dictate if a movie is good or not. But for a multiverse movie, you need cameos, and they gave that, so it was fine for me. But I remember distinctly after that, they showed, well, we heard Xavier's voice in that
I
Super
said
Bowl
it in this
teaser.
reaction.
Yes,
You did.
Antony didn't believe me.
I saw the
Because I didn't think
comments
they would
saying,
put it in the trailer.
no, but I saw the comments, they were like, oh, imagine what they had left for the movie. And they were expecting more things. But we all know, as people in the movie, you know, the business, I wouldn't say we're actual pros, but some of us are, I ain't. But we knew that the movie was being cut. We knew that there were edits going on. We know that it was going to be shorter. This meant less cameos. Meant
But
less storylines. But
do
that's
you
not an
think there
excuse.
are cameos deleted? I don't think it's not like Ryan Reynolds is not in this movie and that he
Oh,
shot something for it.
I don't even think Deadpool was supposed to be in it, and I would have hated it if he was. But I'm just saying, what they had cut could have been more satisfying for those fans who wanted a little bit more than what the advertising gave us. So I think the advertising was poor. You know,
Yeah.
it didn't need to. Spider-Man, they didn't confirm that the two Spider-Man were going to be in it. They teased it very well, but they could have done that with this.
Well,
And it just shows that, Sony did it. Sony made Spider-Man. It wasn't Marvel. It wasn't, Disney. That was Sony's win, and I think Disney botched this one.
I mean, I think
If we
that
have
was
to
the
compare,
problem is that Sony didn't reveal Andrew and Toby, and everybody went in and it was like, hey, it's Andrew and Toby. So we thought we were getting the same thing where they weren't confirming people so that you could be surprised when really they confirmed everybody. Letterbox actually spoiled John Krasinski for me on Monday night because he was listed
Oh
in the cast
no.
list. Yeah, so I knew that going in, and then YouTube was just showing me clips of people in Europe who had
Oh.
already seen it. So
I'm surprised DMCA has not copy striked anything. They're like
yeah.
showing 5 minutes of footage everywhere. And that's fine for me because I want to rewatch these things.
Yeah. Before we move off of this, do we like John Krasinski? Do we want to give him another shot? Because I'm kind of like, this was Marvel's out of like when we announced like Ryan Gosling as Mr. Fantastic or whoever they cast, like they
Listen.
can already say they did your thing.
Listen, when my audiences are very reserved, and I said this before, we don't like to react as much, right? Which is great because we want to hear and see everything as it's supposed to be.
Watch the movie.
We want to watch the movie. You know, but I was fanboying so much when I saw him, and then I was disappointed that everyone else wasn't, reacting with me. But when I went to see the IMAX screening, everyone was just, there were gasps everywhere. There were like happy shock, moments, some clapping. I was like, this bodes well for John. People may not have known, may have reacted for Fantastic Four, or it could have been they saw Jim Halpert on screen, or it was a mixture of both, which was for me. So I think when John Krasinski and Marvel and company see these reactions, I think they're going to, not blank and say, you know what, John, we'll give you a second chance to do this.
All right, so you think he will be our Fantastic Four?
I think there'll be riots if they won't.
I mean, I would probably I feel like what's going to cast him is whether Emily Blunt wants to do it. I don't see a world where he's Mr. Fantastic and she's not the Invisible Woman. Like, imagine like he's paired up with like Jessica Chastain. Like, I don't think it'll happen. So I think she's got to be on board for it to happen. We'll see.
In my view, if Jessica Alba is ever wanting to come back from her billion-dollar business after retiring from the movie industry, I would love her to be back because I thought she was perfect.
She was a really great Sue.
And we should get that guy who played the Human Torch in those movies. What was his name again?
Are we sure about that? Are we sure?
Chris.
I think he's playing a space ranger at the moment.
Chris Pine. Christopherson. Chris.
Oh, Chris Hemsworth? His movie is next.
Oh, yeah, the Hemsworths. There's a lot of Hemsworths. We can have
Jenner, Chris Jenner, right? That's his name, I think.
Yeah.
Trying to think, did we hit everything in the movie? Constance?
Yes, Constance.
My fear with John, please, I actually do hope, because I know the fans want it. We didn't get a huge tasting to see, oh yeah, this works. He didn't have enough time. But I think there's enough there. I mean, in my screening, they clapped for each member, but since he was last, it went on for so long in my screening. So I think the fans will be happy. I think if you don't do it, you're just pulling another Quicksilver, where it is the Ralph Boner thing of like, oh, you wanted him in here. See, we brought him. Psych. It's like, please tell me you learned from that. Don't do that again. That would be bad. So,
very, very true.
If they take one thing away from WandaVision and Jack Schaefer's writing is fully commit to giving us John Krasinski, no Ralph Boner.
Yeah,
but
which I imagine the other thing was more because they didn't know what they wanted to do yet multiverse way, so they were like, let's bring him in, because I think the intended reaction is for all of us to be confused, because for us it's Pietro but not Pietro, which is what Wanda's experiencing. So I think it works.
Yes.
I think it creates the confusion that we're supposed to have. And I'm assuming the reason why they don't just say that she pulled him from a different place is because they didn't know what they were doing multiverse yet. I mean, as was seen, this script was being rewritten constantly. So I imagine they weren't, we even say that the movie doesn't have its own rules. So imagine those rules during the writing process. So I think that's why we have Ralph Boner. But yes, I agree. That's a good point to say about yoinking what people want to see. So maybe he will be back. We'll see.
And
anyone want to? I'm sorry, I keep cutting off everyone. Sorry, Natalia.
What did we all think of America?
She was, for me, the best character in the movie because it was the distinction between making no choices and bad choices. Every other character, there were bad choices made. Her character,
and she was just there.
She was there, but I liked her charisma. I thought Xochitl Gomez, Natalia said, was miscast, but I think she had a nice presence to her. I think that maybe in a couple of years, I feel like her with Kate Bishop, like I'm trying to imagine like the other Young Avengers, could work. We'll have to see them together. But I thought she was fine. I thought the memory lane thing was so lazy. And also, like, is it for somebody who knows the character, is it really a bee lands on her and that's why, like, that seems so stupid.
I don't think
Something about
so.
the animals in the MCU, because a rat is what brings Ant-Man back.
A bee sent her mother's, it's like, I just love the idea. It's like, oh, we're going to have a very inclusive family with 2 moms, and then a bee comes down. And that's what it's like, really, Disney? It's like Barry B. Benson is going to stop you from LGBT representation? All right, thank you.
I just want, I don't know. The casting of Sochi in and of itself still is a little weird to me because like I don't know. All of our young Avengers right now are such different age ranges. We have Haley Steinfeld as a 20-something.
25, I think.
25 for Kate Bishop. Actual 16-year-old Sochi as America. How old are the boys? Like 12?
They're 12, I think. 12.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, like, okay. So are they going to be the boys? Are we not aging them up and we're waiting for them to become? Like, because it's not, the movie doesn't establish that they're coming back.
You know what the movie should have done? Do you know what the movie should have done? They should have shown us.
So many.
They should have showed us, for the boys I'm talking about, they should have showed us different ages of the boys through her visions or her dreams. I think that would have been good segue into the future for Young Avengers.
Why were they all the same age and the same face in all?
Literally!
Like, come on! Like, just that was the thing with like.
It's a whole multiverse.
We go to
why are we stuck in the same time?
We have one montage and then 2 multiverses for the whole movie.
Yeah, that's something wrong with the film. That only 2 versions. Well, we only saw 3 versions of Doctor Strange, but one lazy one at the start with no explanation of what happened.
Yeah. And like what was brought up in terms of Everything Everywhere All at Once. This is not a spoiler for that film. Natalia said like it's hard to make a multiverse movie after that. But as somebody who just rewatched Spider-Man No Way Home, Marvel showed that you can do a multiverse story and it still work to their advantages and be a very moving, emotionally resonant movie. And I think because what they did with that is they used the other characters from the other universes to allow Tom Holland a form of inward introspection and reflection. So he sees a Spider-Man in Tobey Maguire that has everything handled, and then a Spider-Man in Andrew Garfield who's still dealing with loss and grief, and he's trying to find his way in between them. That's at least how I interpreted No Way Home, and I think then the villains there are to show the hypocrisy of being a hero and where you're always right and the villains always have to suffer the consequences, which is why I like that they cure the villains. There's just a lot more going on there. Here, it's just cardboard cutouts, theme park attractions. Hello, how are you doing? That's what all these multiverses were. And just because they look cool with paint doesn't fix the issues that they have no purpose.
Look cool with paint.
Yes.
I don't know. America Chavez should have actually been an Afro-Latina lesbian, please. That's her.
Right. You asked about her. It's not that I don't want her in the MCU. I just don't understand why she's in this exact story.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Where did she come from? How did Wanda find out about her? If Wanda's so powerful, why does she need her at all? Why can't she just reverse?
Before the movie even starts and after it ends.
I thought about this really hard after the movie came out of why she was in this film. And even when I was watching it, I was like, why am I watching this young girl in between a grown-up fight, So the reason I deduced was she, even though it's not explained as Antony and Constance and Natalia has explained, There's no like introduction of this character other than we're just thrusted. My defense is that I can come up with is that we don't know who she is. She doesn't know these characters, so that's why she's all of a sudden in our faces. She can only open portals to each universe, right? Or multiverse.
Yeah.
So you can directly interact with them. Wanda could only dream of being a mother with her children. And she could, as the movie is explained, dreamwalk into that character. But that can't be forever because she needs the Darkhold, right? So the Darkhold was her key, but it's not a permanent key. As we all know, it's being destroyed in one universe. So she needed America to open one up for her to finally do whatever she wanted with that other Wanda and just suddenly be with her children. So that's it. It was a necessity in the movie and the storyline, but it still begs the question, without that, right? And if Wanda could find a way of opening a portal herself, which I think we all know she could do, then America wasn't supposed to be in this movie.
They needed a scream queen. They needed somebody to scream every time Wanda did something because they were making
She's
a horror
a
movie.
very good yeller.
Yeah, she was good.
I think that's completely fair. I don't agree with you, Sohail, but I think everything you've said throughout our whole conversation, like, oh, I don't agree with that, but it makes sense why his brain went there. I could see why people would land where you've landed.
Yeah.
So those,
I respect
still listening to us. If you love this movie, we're not saying you're terrible people. We're just,
no.
I don't know how much of it is, oh, I wanted these things and I didn't get them, so I'm just going to whine right now. I was trying not to think about the whole, oh, the X-Men are coming or this is going to happen. I was trying not to do that. I just thought they told me it was going to, WandaVision was important, and I assumed Doctor Strange 1 was important. So to me, those were the only things that I had to hold on to because from previous movies, that's what's happened. So.
Yeah, and I appreciate Sohail because I think you're a necessary counterpoint to I think the other three of us kind of opinions on the movie. I think this movie is working for people, and I think it's the whole point of discourse is to actually debate. We wouldn't be debating if we didn't have somebody.
If everyone all thought the same thing.
So I appreciate you're willing to sit through Constance and myself having a little episode that may create our own version of Westview in our own homes.
Although I would say with Constance, I absolutely agree. They should have put in more correlations with WandaVision. Maybe a little bit, I don't know what this movie would have done, flashbacks or something, but more introspective within each era that we got in WandaVision and brought that to the movie instead of her just being happy with the kids and that being the only reason. Because Vision, again, was sorely missed. He was like the elephant in the room that wasn't there.
And they don't arc. Like, I don't think, like, what does Doctor Strange learn? Like, I don't think any of these characters actually go on a journey thematically. To be happy.
America can punch portals now.
Yeah, it's all
she can
physical.
punch real hard.
It's physical changes, but it's not internal changes.
No, absolutely not.
Because they're all plot devices. They're not characters. But I will say the dream walking, I like the idea of like you dream your other multiverse lives. I thought that was cool. Original. I like the idea of dream walking. I think the idea that Strange becomes a hypocrite in dream walking would have been better utilized in a script that actually talked about his hypocrisies as a character, not just a mention at the end where she calls him a hypocrite. But still, like that whole sequence was kind of cool. And then we should probably talk about Charlize Theron as Clea.
I was just going to say this. That's why I had my hand up. The only time where I felt the deepest connection to the first Doctor Strange was at the end when she opened the portal and we saw Dormammu.
It's like
literally. She looked good. The wig was shit. Which I feel like is the running theme of this film is bad wigs, hot people.
That should be the Blu-ray box, like the quote. Bad wigs, hot people. We are great.
They needed people to be relatable to this film by having bad hair or good people.
Bad hair, hot people.
Yeah. And I'll fully admit this is a nitpick, but it kind of was funny. The last shot where they jump, it's like they only had like a block because the way they move, it's like they do like a and they cut. So that's a nitpick, but it was like the fact that that's the last shot of like.
It made it seem.
Sorry, go.
No, I agree. Yeah.
I hated Charlize's hair. I saw that and I was like, what are you doing? Inches, stop. It was so bizarre. Because I don't know. I always felt like the way that Clea was dressed, it was like tight and there were like some little loosey parts. Like, babe, either put your hair up or have like a really sexy bob. That's it.
So I like that she's cast, and I like that she's an appropriate aged cast member for Doctor
Definitely,
Strange. They didn't
yeah.
cast Clea younger, and she obviously commits to these roles. I think so. I'm great. I think she's great to be in here. I hope that she's not written by Michael Waldron.
I just feel like it's so annoying how you go to a Doctor Strange sequel and the only time it actually feels like it is at the end.
Yeah. Well, again, it's like, for me, this is what I'm hoping for. I hope that for the next Doctor Strange, I would love to see James Wan direct it and maybe bring on his team, because I think we've shown that he knows how to do big budget, but we also know that he knows how to do character-driven stories.
And comic horror.
Yeah, and comic horror. I think he would be a good choice, because I love Sam Raimi, but I think Sam Raimi didn't. I'm sorry, Constance agrees. I think not watching WandaVision was you can't recover from that. It's like the fact that you didn't it's coming to class, not doing the homework, and then forcing everybody to listen. It felt like that Friends episode where Rachel or Phoebe starts talking about Rachel starts talking about how like Jane Eyre is about robot revolution. It's like there's no defense. Like, you didn't do the reading. Come on, like, Raimi, you can't distract us with these cool visuals and miss the story, because that is the problem. It's the story is lacking. The story has no discernible point to it. To me, it felt redundant. It felt like a cul-de-sac.
And that directly should go to Kevin Feige. I think we should stop blaming Raimi for all these mistakes and say,
Fair.
Kevin,
I
you're missing the mark here. You missed it on Eternals. You missed it, even though I don't agree, you missed it on Black Widow, and you're missing it here. What else are you doing that you think you're very confident at?
I wouldn't put Black Widow in this. I think Black Widow would work.
I hear people say that.
That's fine. I think with Eternals, I would put Eternals and Doctor Strange in the same boat. I think Eternals fares better because at least the characters are consistent. Like, I think like the Icarus arc is what the Wanda arc should have been, in a way. At least to me, like, it shows his falling out of faith, and like he loses his way, and then the third act works. Eternals, it was just a little messy and there were too many characters, but I think,
works better than this.
Works better than this for me. But I think what's happening with Feige is I think he's hearing the complaints of people too much. He's hearing that he's a monotonous factory, and he's letting these filmmakers do so many things. And granted, I think creative expression is needed, and I really love that, but he already had that. I think what happened was just the Russo brothers were the captains of the final movies, and because we had Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame so close, that became the Marvel style, when it never really was. It was just they were tapped to do the final chapter, and we had so many of them so back to back. So I think listen, this works because he has a vision for it, and letting them play with this, letting him play in the sandbox without rules is not the way to go. I think that's what we just need. We just need clear rules and then have fun, as Scott Derrickson did in the first Doctor Strange, as WandaVision, I think, did. Like, WandaVision is one of the most creatively ambitious things to come out of a blockbuster in years, and it still felt consistent. And that's what I think we're missing here, is just the consistency within the project and without.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that Kevin is, has a great track record. We can all remember Hulk, and we can also remember Thor 2. So we know that he's, not infallible, but I think he needs to understand that the fans who thought he was so great, and I'm kind of glad that there's a reaction from them that says, "Oh no, he wasn't the greatest person to, lead this
I mean, he made a mistake. I'm not going to
Yeah,
curse him out.
but he
I still love the
made
guy.
mistakes so close together after what people thought was going to be a great phase. You know, a phase
I mean,
4.
I still respect. Listen, art is never going to work for you all the time. These things are bound to happen. He's not Teflon. So, and I like the fact that we're having this conversation. There is a part of me that at least respects it because we are talking about, intent and choices. I think that we need to make sure that we're not conflating interesting discussions with I wouldn't say this is a net positive because we're having a discussion about it, because that's like conflating
we are still complaining and making comments about your movie that should have had its own things already worked out before you set it out to print.
Yeah, it's like talking about the presidencies and saying, oh, the Trump presidency is very interesting. It's like, we don't need to conflate the two. Interesting, having a lot to talk about doesn't mean it's good. And so I think he needs to captain the ship a little bit better, because I think that's how this works. Yeah. And I don't think that means forcing filmmakers to do things his way. But we saw from the beginning, Scott Derrickson left this project because of creative differences. That was telling that he maybe this feels very Age of Ultron to me, and that he wanted this movie to do things that the filmmaker didn't want it to do, and so then he just found a filmmaker that was willing to do it. And that's never been the way these things work. I don't think it's the way Marvel has ever worked when it works well. I don't think Taika Waititi was ever forced to do something he didn't want to do in Thor Ragnarok. Ryan Coogler, the same thing, and that's when Marvel has worked the best. So even the Russo brothers, I think that is their movie and they stand behind those choices. So when we're saying Kevin Feige needs to take a little bit more ownership and control, that's not us saying we need to delegitimize and lessen the voices of the filmmakers. It's just he needs to be a little bit more aware of the consistency of Marvel.
I did not know who Clea was, but I'm not a Marvel expert. I never know what the end credits mean. So
Google is your friend.
That was the one time in my very, very vocal audience, they were quiet during that. But after the punching one, they laughed so hard. I was like, oh my God, I could see that being very poorly received. But I think everyone was in such a good mood and they were going along with everything that was going on. They were totally like, yeah, that was great. I didn't mind because it reminded me of Cap at the end of Homecoming when patience, I was like, we haven't done one of those in a while. Maybe it was time to do another one. So I didn't mind, but I'm not going to watch it again.
My audience for the first one, I don't really know. I don't think anyone knew Clea. I did. So I kind of smacked him in his arm. I was like, oh, Charlize Theron as Clea. And then everyone else was silent. And then when Bruce Campbell showed up for the last one, everyone was so annoyed. Everyone was like, that's it.
My crowd laughed.
That's it. I sat for this whole time for this. And I was like,
it was fun. I liked it.
It was great. Oh, God, it was.
And my kid, who's actually very good at connecting dots, she mistook that. She thought that was Thena from Eternals. She was like, oh, this is how they're bringing in the Eternals. They're going to pair up with him. And I was like, what? And she's like, wasn't that Thena? And I was like, no. That's not Angelina Jolie.
It was the other angelic.
It was the other
female
white-haired. It was the other white-haired in skinny Marvel alien suit.
Yeah. Maybe we should end on this because if you're still with us, thank you. Hello,
Hi.
Isaac. What do we want from the future? I think we talked about Doctor Strange 3. Do we want a Scarlet Witch future? I kind of feel a little depreciated in terms of the future of that character.
Why would they do that?
Yeah. That I think that's a great moment of this is where we're talking about Feige needs to step in. Killing Wanda doesn't make sense because this character we're gonna.
I don't think she's dead.
But
they didn't show a body.
I don't think she's dead.
They didn't show a body.
I don't think she's dead. However, the decision itself is ludicrous.
Do you think 616 Wanda is dead and we'll get a different multiverse Wanda, or you think 616 is still alive?
I think they left it open-ended so that depending on response and they have time to film more. And she did sign a multi-picture or multi-year, whatever.
Yeah.
It's open so they can go, okay, now we have a little time and we can make a decision. So I don't think it's been made yet. I think they're waiting to see how this is going.
Mm-hmm.
My overall feeling, I'm very worried. I was very excited for Thor 4. I am not now. I worry that it's going to be the same thing. My overall, like, I want the Doctor Strange movie that I was promised. I wanted Mordor to come and make him confront, like, this, see, told you. You did this with Dormammu. You did this with Thanos. You did this with Peter Parker. He did 3 bad things he shouldn't have done. He needs to answer to that. Wanda, I do want more Wanda, but if you call it Doctor Strange, make it about Doctor Strange. If you call it Thor, make it about Thor. I worry it's not going to be Thor's movie. He's going to be like that.
It's going to be Thor, and it's going to be Thor.
Semantics, whatever. Okay.
I know.
I think Thor: Love and Thunder will be fine because I believe this will be the first time that an Academy Award-winning screenwriter is writing the movie because Taika Waititi is writing this time.
Good for him.
I mean, I think I am not worried about the future of Marvel. I'm not worried about the future of Marvel. I am worried about maybe Loki season 2 because Michael Waldron is probably still writing that show, even though I enjoyed season 1 immensely. So we shall see. But I feel like this will be I hope, and I'm going to give them the faith that this is a singular misstep in an otherwise, and they'll learn from this. I hope they learn from this.
I don't know. It's just, I'm confused, hesitant, but I mean, we all know that we're also going to watch whatever happens next.
No.
I don't know if Antony's
not going to be.
I don't know if Antony's going to do that. I think his time has run out. His ticket full. I don't know. I'm a bit hesitant. It's so, I don't know if I want more direction, because then I feel like I'm gonna get shit on because everyone's like, oh, all the Marvel movies were the same. And just like Antony pointed out, we had all of this back-to-back Russo-ness. So of course
that's where I think this
yeah, definitely. Where it felt like, oh yeah, all the Marvel movies are the same, when it was just the Russos time and time again. And I was like, yeah, of course it's going to feel all the same, because they're all they're continuing on the stuff
Russo style
that they put in. Yeah.
I'm nervous about where we're going, because that's the other thing. I'm tired. I'm going to still watch, but I'll tell you, now I feel like, I don't know why I put myself through Hawkeye and Moon Knight. They're not bad shows, but now I feel like, oh, I wasn't really feeling them. I probably could skip some things. Where are we going? Some end credit scenes are talking about Skrulls. Some end credit scenes are talking about the Contessa and U.S. Agent. And, now we got Clea. I mean, it just feels like I'm being bombarded with people, and it's hard to keep up.
I think you feel that because 2 things. 1, this was the first movie that I think actively did not reward you for your dedication. Which, again, I don't think that's being butthurt. I think that's they established a story and then ignored it. That is something to be upset about. I think there is a difference. I mentioned The Last Jedi at the beginning. There is a difference between this and The Last Jedi, because The Last Jedi, there was 30 years in between, and logically Luke Skywalker could have changed into a different character. And besides, within the movie, it's set up. Within this movie, the characters are not well defined, they're plot devices, and they're not making the choices they've made in the past. And so I think that's the issue, is that A, it's the first time that it doesn't feel like they rewarded us for our following this journey. B, if you haven't been following this journey, the story isn't good enough to stand on its own. And then C, there's so much going on. What worked about the MCU was how simple it was. Everybody gets a movie, then Avengers. Everybody gets a sequel, then Avengers. We introduced the Guardians, then Avengers Infinity War. It was so simple and concise and succinct. Here, we're off in so many different places, and I think it might be hard for everybody to keep it together. And maybe this is just Feige's growing pains, and then he'll hustle it back. I think the issue is because we don't know what we're leading to. We always were leading to an Avengers movie, and they haven't decided what that is yet. Is that Fantastic Four? Is that X-Men? Is that Avengers 5? Once they establish what that is, I think we'll be back on track.
The other thing that I think is a problem, that's not the movie's fault. I think as a side effect, I personally can't help but follow all the fan theories and all the Like, I didn't know who Clea was. So after the movie, I came home and I was like, let me look this up and let me watch people who have really good YouTube videos, by the way, YouTube channels, where they go, do you not know what comics are? I'll explain the history of this character to you so you know what the heck you're looking at. Those are always so helpful. But then a part of their video will be, based on what they've shown us, we could go to this place. And they're very careful to say that's possible. Not that it's happening, that it's possible. But I start to latch onto that. Kind of like how people were thinking, oh, Tom Cruise is going to show up as Iron Man in this movie. Because
Mephisto.
Yes, Mephisto confirmed. Yeah. So I do think going forward, maybe we should be careful with fan theories. Like, don't get too wrapped up in that because it's going to lead to this feeling. So it's like, okay, if they didn't promise they were going to give you that and then it doesn't show up, don't get mad. Like, I'm not mad that Wanda didn't do a reverse House of M and create the mutants instead of destroy them. Because they didn't say they were going to do that. They didn't give you any reason to think that was going to happen in this movie. So I was not mad that was absent.
The problem with fan theories in that the whole idea of like get expectation is, listen, it's a part of how this works. These movies and shows work because people are invested. And if you're not going to do something that maybe fans want, so if you're not going to continue the arc of WandaVision, which is what people would want after, you better have something in its place that is as good, if not better. The Russo brothers did this perfectly because, like, ending the movie with I am Iron Man is not what any of us maybe were expecting, but when we watched it, it was like, wow, that is exactly what I wanted but didn't know I want. That's what they should be doing. Giving you what you want, giving you what you want, but not in the way you thought you would get it, because it still surprises you, but it feels consistent, because the fans are smart. They're watching this with an awareness of the character arcs, the stories, the themes. So you should be smarter than the fans. I think Rian Johnson was perfect when he said, we shouldn't be giving the fans what they want. We should be giving the fans what they need.
So what's our ranking? I'm curious of what, if you had to rank it.
Did you rate it at all? Out of 10? Did you rate it at all?
No.
Out of 10?
We can do it. So Sohail said an 8. Are you still on an 8, Sohail?
Yes.
Okay. Constance.
3.
Damn.
Wow.
Natalia.
6.
I will go a 3.6.
I was gonna say, you all are too nice.
That's so meticulous.
Okay, wait. Let me put it. Let me really.
Don't let me sway you. If that's where you stand, that's where you
Okay.
stand. I'm just saying you're way too nice.
What does that average out?
If Natalia's keeping her 6.
I'm not keeping you. Not
Well, you said a 5?
I said a 5.
Okay, so 8.
Mm.
Then our average rating is a 4.9 for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Dang.
So there you go.
And it's too high. No, I'm kidding.
But thank you to anybody who's still listening. This was a lot of fun, I think, for all of us. And thank you for joining us on our 5th season of The Council. Hopefully we'll be back soon to maybe talk about, I don't know, Jurassic World, Dominion, Thor, Love and Thunder. Let us know what you're interested in us breaking down.
Who wants to go first?
I was going to promote the at the council. Or
yes. At the council pod.
Yeah.
Yes.
Natalia, where can they find you?
They can find me saying very little about this film at the Brown Lesbian on the tweeters.
Yes.
Constance?
Also on Twitter, Constance St. Louis. I'm really just retweeting what people are saying, my thoughts, but they say I'm better, so I just retweet.
Mood.
At Brown Scotsman for me.
And I am at Antony_post on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, and on YouTube at Spoilers Ahead with Antony Post. So yeah, come check me out over there. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to my fellow panel members. And I guess I'll see you in another multiverse.
Bye.
Bye.